Steelers and Vikings. In Dublin, in front of more than 74,000 people. And somehow, despite all the weirdness, despite the unfamiliar setting, despite missing key players like Jaylen Warren and reshuffling parts of the offensive line once again, the Pittsburgh Steelers walked off the historic turf at Crow Park with a win that felt like something much bigger than a 3-point difference on the scoreboard. 24-21. That was the score. But that doesn't even begin to tell the story. The energy in the building was electric. Fast-paced football, an enthusiastic and curious crowd, and maybe most importantly, a Steelers offense that finally looked like it had found a formula that actually works. It didn't start pretty. And let's be real, nothing about this offense has looked smooth through the early part of the season. But there was a clear sense on this particular Monday morning in Dublin that something had shifted. And not just because they won. It was how they won, who stepped up, and what it all might mean going forward. First, let's talk about the surprise of the day. Jaylen Warren was ruled out barely 90 minutes before kickoff. The team decided it was better to protect his knee now and take advantage of the upcoming bye week rather than push it. Smart move. But it also threw the offense into what should have been a scramble. Instead, it became an opportunity. Kenny Gainwell got the nod, and from the first snap, he played like he had something to prove. Then Caleb Johnson got his touches too, and neither of them looked overwhelmed. But the most fascinating shift came in the trenches because the offensive line finally took a stand. Literally and figuratively. This line has been getting criticized for weeks. Every analyst, every fan, even every teammate knew they weren't getting it done. And when your offensive line isn't working, it doesn't just hurt the run game. It wrecks everything. Play action gets tossed. Deep throws become suicide missions. Even simple passes over the middle get eliminated. That's where Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, clearly said enough is enough. He adjusted. Big time. We saw formations with 6 offensive linemen. We saw Darnell Washington glued to Broderick Jones, giving that left side some serious meat. And then came Spencer Anderson, number 74, reporting as eligible so many times that even the Irish crowd up in the nosebleed started to chuckle. But it wasn't gimmicky. It was calculated. It was legal. It was smart. And above all, it worked. This was the kind of smash-mouth football that Pittsburgh has always prided itself on. Run heavy, right side dominant, physical. You could feel the change immediately. They leaned into it, and the offense finally opened up. Now, is this a long-term solution? Probably not. You don't want your quarterback limited in options because you're relying on extra blockers just to survive. But for this game, for this moment, it was exactly what the Steelers needed. And the ripple effect was real. With that extra protection, Aaron Rodgers, making his first start, had time. Maybe more time than he realized at certain points. You could sense he was surprised by it, even hesitant. Rushing a few throws, he could have held a bit longer. That'll get corrected with reps. What matters is that it's fixable. And now, finally, they have something to build from. And when your offense functions, guess what? Your defense benefits too. The edge rushers weren't stuck on the field all day. They were fresh. They were vicious. You got the best of TJ Watt. You got the best of Nick Herbig. And with the crowd behind them, with the game flowing the right way, that unit looked like something dangerous again. That offensive line, man, they were buzzing after the game. And not just them. Their teammates were actually stopping by their lockers on the way to the showers, dapping them up, saying good job, giving them real props. That doesn't happen when you play poorly. In the past few weeks, those linemen were just part of the background. Today, they were the reason the team was able to stay upright and control the tempo. Kenny Gainwell immediately credited them for his rushing performance. DK Metcalf gave them credit too. Everyone saw what they did, and everyone understood how critical it was. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't flashy, but got the job done. That's Pittsburgh football. Then you have Spencer Anderson, thrust into the spotlight in a new role, reporting in again and again, and blocking like a man possessed. After the game, you could hear it in his voice. He wasn't just happy to be out there. He was prepared. He knew his job. He executed. That's what coaches love. That's what builds trust. And it wasn't just about him. This was a collective effort. The communication was there. The focus. The grit. Everything you want from a unit that's been under fire for weeks. There was even a little swagger. After one failed goal line run, Spencer joked with another lineman, "Man, we should have run it my way." And honestly, he might have been right. That edge was being captured. The second level was being reached. And they were moving the ball behind him. That's what happens when the plan works. And you could see that swagger spread throughout the offense. Suddenly the field felt bigger. The playbook felt wider. The wide receivers were being used across the entire field, much like in the season opener. Johnson was making cuts. Gainwell was hitting holes. There was a rhythm. There was purpose. And when you mix that with a few smart, tough catches from your receivers and a quarterback who's gaining confidence, that's a team starting to believe in itself again. And let's be honest, none of this happens if you're letting your quarterback get hit every other snap. So yeah, throw an extra lineman out there. Stick it tight, end on the edge. Report as eligible 700 times if you need to. Nobody was complaining after this one. Not one lineman was whining about needing help. Not one player questioned the strategy. They all saw the same thing. It worked. It gave them a chance to win. It gave them space to breathe. From the top down, the vibe was different. The sideline had energy. The body language was positive. You didn't see heads hanging. You didn't see forced frustration. You saw a team clicking. And when the offense clicks, it feeds everything else. Rodgers might not have used all the time he was given, but he looked like a guy learning how to trust his line. And that trust is going to matter down the line, especially when the Steelers get back home, especially when the schedule tightens up. One of the most telling moments of this game didn't even happen between the whistles. It was the scene in the locker room afterward. Guys joking, laughing, praising each other. And more than anything, it was the vibe around the offensive line, those big men who had taken so much heat through the first 3 weeks. For once, they weren't just tolerated. They were celebrated. They weren't just seen as the weak link. They were the engine. The locker room was buzzing with that energy. It's always easy to talk about skill players, the quarterback, the running backs, the highlight catches. But when the guys up front get the job done, everything opens up. And what Pittsburgh showed in Dublin was a team that found its backbone again. Not through trick plays or some magical game plan, but through fundamentals. Through commitment to controlling the line of scrimmage. Through recognizing that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. You can't move the football if you don't win up front. And that message finally seems to have been embraced at every level of the organization. What's also worth noticing is how much more balanced the Steelers looked because of those offensive adjustments. This wasn't a team relying on one or two guys to bail them out. There was distribution. There was variety. Kenny Gainwell didn't look like someone who just stepped in because Warren was unavailable. He looked like a guy who had been waiting for this moment and was absolutely ready to run with it. Literally. Vision, patience, acceleration. All of it. And every time he picked up a chunk of yardage, you could see the confidence in the blockers grow just a little more. Caleb Johnson had his moments too. He was physical. He got downhill. He ran like a guy with something to prove. And those kinds of performances from your backup running backs, that's culture. That's depth. That's the sign of a coaching staff that actually prepared the roster, even for unexpected changes. Now, the game itself wasn't perfect. It wasn't dominant for 4 straight quarters. But the difference was clear. The Steelers weren't constantly shooting themselves in the foot. They weren't going 3 and out repeatedly. They weren't giving their defense another impossible workload. They sustained drives. They moved the chains. They ate up clock. And in doing so, they took control of the rhythm of the game. That rhythm extended to Aaron Rodgers, who, for the first time in a Steelers uniform, looked like a quarterback who knew he had time to breathe. No, he didn't play flawless football, but he looked more in command. He wasn't scrambling for his life. And while he rushed a couple of throws, missed a few reads, that comes with learning a new system and getting used to real game speed again. You take that every day of the week, especially knowing that he wasn't getting pressured into mistakes on every drop back. The play-action game, for example, was finally there. The deep routes didn't feel suicidal. The middle of the field wasn't a no-fly zone. All of that starts with pass protection. And for one of the first times this season, Pittsburgh gave their quarterback a rail pocket. That doesn't sound like much, but in a league where split seconds change everything, it's massive. Even in the red zone, where the Steelers have struggled for years to finish drives, there was a new level of composure. Not every trip ended in a touchdown, but there was purpose in the play calling. There was structure. It didn't feel like panic mode. It felt like execution, like guys who knew exactly what they needed to do, even if the result wasn't perfect every time. And again, this all ties back to the line. Spencer Anderson talked about it after the game. Being called into that sixth-man role, hearing his number announced over the loudspeaker again and again, and blocking his heart out. He said he was ready, that they had worked on it all week. And you could tell. He wasn't overwhelmed. He wasn't unsure. He did the job. He sealed the edge. He got into the second level. He was a big part of the reason the run game had space to operate. That's not just about physical talent. That's preparation. That's scheme. That's trusting your guys to handle what you give them. It's also coaching, putting players in positions to succeed instead of throwing them into the fire and hoping they survive. Spencer may not be an all-pro, but in that role, on that day, he was exactly what the Steelers needed him to be. And that changes things. It changes the offense. It changes the defense. It changes the locker room. Because winning football always starts with trust. Trust in your plan. Trust in your teammates. And trust that when someone's number is called, they're going to be ready. Pittsburgh showed that in Dublin. Loud and clear. And look, maybe this game doesn't mean they've fixed everything. Maybe the next opponent brings different challenges. Maybe the line has another bad day ahead. But what matters is that this game gave them a blueprint, a fallback, a version of themselves that actually works under pressure. And more than anything, it gave them proof that with a few smart adjustments and some buy-in from everyone, they can move the ball. They can score. They can protect the quarterback. And they can win games. There's also something to be said for the atmosphere. This wasn't Heinz Field. It wasn't even a neutral site in NFL Stadium. This was Croke Park in Ireland, filled with people who might have been seeing a football game like this for the first time in their lives. And yet, they were into it. Loud, engaged, reacting to the flow of the game. There was an energy to the crowd that the players definitely fed off of. But there were also moments that showed how unique the setting really was. Every time number 74 reported as eligible, the crowd reacted. At first with confusion, then with laughter, then, toward the end, with full-on amusement. They got it. They started picking up the little rhythms of the game. And if you watched closely, you could see how much the players appreciated it. And then there was the locker room scene. Players giving credit where it was due. Not just to the stars, but to the grinders, to the blockers, to the guys who made it all possible. There was a genuine joy in the air. The kind of feeling that only comes when a team knows it's starting to click. Not because everything went perfectly, but because they overcame something together. There's something powerful about that, especially for a team like this one, still trying to find its identity in a tough AFC landscape. And while they still have a long way to go, this was a moment, a real turning point, maybe one of those games that doesn't just count in the standings, but counts in the locker room, in the mindset, in the belief. Because when you see your adjustments work, when you watch players respond, when your backups play like starters, and your line finally holds firm, you walk away with more than just a win. You walk away with momentum. And that's something the Steelers have desperately needed. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers have been circling the NFL landscape, and if the latest buzz proves true, the Pittsburgh Steelers are about to make one of the boldest defensive moves in recent memory. Sources close to the team hint that Myles Garrett, the feared monster defender, known for his relentless pressure and game-changing presence, could be suiting up in black and gold sooner than anyone expected. The idea of Garrett patrolling the Steelers' defensive front has sent shockwaves through the league, and naturally, fans are already imagining the havoc he could wreak on opposing quarterbacks. Garrett, who has built a reputation as one of the most dominant pass rushers in the league, is reportedly set to take over a position that has long been a cornerstone of Pittsburgh's storied defensive identity. While nothing is officially confirmed, insiders suggest that Garrett's arrival would instantly elevate the Steelers' defense to elite status, giving them the kind of firepower that could turn every Sunday into a quarterback's nightmare. The team, historically known for producing hard-hitting, relentless defenders, seems poised to add a new chapter to that legacy, and Myles Garrett fits the bill perfectly. Fans have taken to social media to speculate on how Garrett's presence might transform the Steelers' defensive schemes. Some envision him wreaking havoc off the edge in classic Pittsburgh fashion, while others predict the team will craft new strategies around his sheer athleticism and disruptive ability. One thing is clear. If this rumor solidifies, opposing offenses will have to rethink their game plans entirely. Garrett's blend of speed, strength, and football IQ makes him a nightmare for tackles, tight ends, and running backs alike, and the mere suggestion of him joining Pittsburgh has already generated a frenzy of excitement among the faithful. While management has stayed tight-lipped, the buzz refuses to die down. Speculation ranges from immediate impact on the roster to long-term dynasty-building ambitions. Some say this could be the move that finally signals Pittsburgh's intent to reclaim its status as a defensive powerhouse, while others wonder if the chemistry between Garrett and the Steelers' defensive stalwarts will be instantaneous or take time to develop. Either way, the possibility of Myles Garrett in a Steelers uniform is enough to keep fans talking, debating, and dreaming of the gridiron fireworks that could soon arrive in Pittsburgh. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.